Take a moment and become aware of the words you use every single day. Not just the ones you speak out loud, but even the quiet whispers that move through your mind. Because whether you realize it or not, every word you choose carries energy. It carries intention. It carries direction. And that direction is constantly shaping the reality you are living in. You may think of words as simple tools for communication, but they are far more powerful than that. Words are vibrations, they are signals you send out into the invisible field of possibility that surrounds you. And this field, responsive, intelligent, and deeply connected to your inner state, reflects back to you whatever you consistently project into it. So when you speak, you are not just describing your life, you are quietly creating it. Think about how often people say things like, "Nothing ever works out for me," or "I always struggle," or "This is just how my life is." These phrases may feel harmless, even truthful in the moment. But each time they are repeated, they become reinforced. They begin to form patterns, and those patterns settle into the subconscious mind. And once something reaches the subconscious, it no longer feels like a possibility, it feels like a fact. Your subconscious mind does not question whether something is good for you or bad for you. It simply accepts what is repeated with emotion and consistency. So, when your words are rooted in limitation, doubt, or fear, your subconscious begins to organize your perception and behavior around those ideas. You start to notice more obstacles. You begin to expect less. You unconsciously align your actions with the very limitations you have been speaking into existence. But the moment you become aware of this process, everything begins to shift because now you realize that your words are not random. They are not insignificant. They are creative forces. Each sentence you speak is like planting a seed in the soil of your reality. And over time, those seeds grow. If you plant seeds of doubt, you will experience hesitation and missed opportunities. If you plant seeds of possibility, you begin to notice openings, ideas, and solutions that were always there but previously invisible to you. This is why awareness is so powerful. Not control, not perfection, just awareness. When you become aware of your words, you create a space between your thoughts and your reactions. In that space, you have a choice. You can continue repeating old patterns, or you can gently shift your language in a way that aligns with the life you truly want to experience. And this shift does not require force, it requires intention. Instead of speaking from what appears to be lacking, you begin to speak from what is possible. Instead of reinforcing what is not working, you begin to acknowledge what could work. This doesn't mean denying your current reality. It means choosing not to define yourself by it. Because the truth is, your current circumstances are not permanent. They are fluid, they are responsive, and they are influenced by the energy you bring into them, especially through your words. So when you say something, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this expanding my reality or is it limiting it? Is this opening a door or quietly closing one? This simple awareness begins to rewire your inner world. And as your inner world shifts, your outer experience begins to follow. You start to notice subtle changes. Your mindset becomes lighter. Your reactions become calmer. Opportunities that once felt out of reach begin to feel possible. And this is not coincidence, this is alignment. Because when your words, your thoughts, and your energy begin to move in the same direction, life responds differently. It meets you in that space of clarity. It reflects back the intention you are now consciously choosing. And over time, something even deeper happens. You no longer feel like a passive observer of your life. You begin to feel like a participant in its creation, not by controlling everything, but by understanding your role in shaping the experience. And it all begins with something so simple, so often overlooked, yet incredibly powerful. The words you choose to speak. Choose them with awareness, and you begin to choose your reality. There is a phrase so common, so casually spoken, that most people never stop to question its impact. It slips into everyday conversation without resistance, almost as if it were harmless. Yet, within it lies a quiet reinforcement of limitation, a subtle conditioning of the mind that shapes how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. That phrase is "I can't afford." At first glance, it seems practical, even responsible. You might say it when you look at something beyond your current financial reach, or when you're trying to justify a decision. But what truly matters is not the situation itself, it is the meaning you attach to it through your words. Because the moment you say, "I can't afford," You are not just describing a temporary circumstance, you are declaring a limitation as if it were permanent. And the mind listens. The subconscious absorbs this statement not as a passing thought, but as a directive. It begins to organize your perception around scarcity. It subtly shifts your focus toward what is lacking rather than what is possible. And without realizing it, you begin to close doors that may not have even required force to open. Notice the energy behind those words. I can't afford carries a sense of finality. It stops the conversation within yourself. It signals that there is no further exploration needed, no alternative path worth considering. It is not just a statement, it is an ending. But life does not respond to endings. Life responds to openness, to curiosity, to possibility. When you declare that something is beyond your reach, you align your awareness with that belief. You begin to overlook opportunities, ignore creative solutions, and dismiss ideas that could have led you forward. Not because they do not exist, but because your mind is no longer searching for them. This is how limitation quietly sustains itself, not through external force, but through internal agreement. Now imagine shifting that energy even slightly. Instead of closing the door with I can't afford, you pause and ask, how can I afford this? Do you feel the difference? The moment you ask that question, something changes within you. The mind, which was previously shutting down, begins to open. It moves from conclusion to curiosity. And curiosity is powerful, because when the mind becomes curious, it starts to explore. It begins to look for pathways where before there were none. It considers new ideas, new actions, new perspectives. It invites creativity, and creativity is where possibility lives. This doesn't mean that everything will instantly become available to you. It means that you are no longer defining your reality by limitation. You are engaging with it in a way that allows growth, expansion, and unexpected outcomes to unfold. You are no longer reinforcing scarcity, you are stepping into awareness. Understand that abundance is not only about money, it is about perception. It is about the way you relate to what you have, what you desire, and what you believe is achievable. And your words play a central role in shaping that relationship. Every time you say, I can't afford, you strengthen the identity of someone who is restricted. But every time you shift that language even gently, you begin to loosen that identity. You create space for a new way of seeing yourself, not as someone limited by circumstances, but as someone capable of navigating them. This is not about pretending or ignoring reality. It is about recognizing that reality is influenced by how you engage with it. Your words are part of that engagement. They are the bridge between your inner world and your outer experience. So, when you catch yourself about to say those three words, don't resist them with force. Simply notice them, acknowledge them, and then choose again. Choose a statement that keeps the door open, that invites possibility instead of shutting it down. Because in that small moment of awareness, you are no longer reacting out of habit. You are responding with intention. And that intention begins to reshape everything. The shift may feel subtle at first, almost insignificant. But over time it accumulates. It changes the way you think, the way you decide, the way you act. And gradually it changes what you experience. Not because the world suddenly became different, but because you did. So be mindful of the words that seem the most ordinary, because they often carry the deepest influence. And remember this: what you declare as impossible, you will never allow yourself to discover. There is a quiet power in the way you phrase even the simplest thoughts, a power that often goes unnoticed because it feels so natural, so automatic. Yet within that subtle space between a thought and the words you choose to express it, there exists an opportunity, an opening, where limitation can either take root or dissolve into possibility. And this is where transformation truly begins. When you encounter something you desire, and your first instinct is to say, I can't afford it, you may believe you are being realistic. But what is actually happening is far more significant. You are closing a door before you have even explored whether it could be opened. You are concluding the conversation before it has had a chance to unfold. And in doing so, you train your mind to stop searching, to stop imagining, to stop creating. But what if, in that very moment, you chose something different? What if instead of ending the thought, you extended it? A simple shift begins to occur when you ask yourself, how can I afford this? Notice how this question feels. It does not demand an immediate answer. It does not force a solution. simply invites your awareness to expand. It moves you from a fixed mindset into a fluid one, from a place of limitation into a space of curiosity. And curiosity changes everything, because the mind is naturally drawn to solve what it perceives as open. When you ask a question, especially one that carries the energy of possibility, your subconscious begins to respond. It starts to look for patterns, opportunities, connections that were previously overlooked. Not because they suddenly appeared, but because your perception is now aligned to notice them. This is the subtle shift from limitation to possibility. It is not about denying your current circumstances or pretending that something is immediately available to you. It is about refusing to define your future based on your present moment. It is about recognizing that what you see right now is only a fragment of what is possible, not the full picture. And when you change the language you use, you begin to change the way you interact with that picture. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you might say, I'm learning how to do this. Feel the difference in energy. The first statement closes the path. The second one opens it. The first one reinforces a limitation. The second one acknowledges growth. And growth is where transformation lives. This shift may seem small, almost insignificant, but it carries a profound impact over time because your mind begins to adopt this new pattern. It becomes more solution oriented, more expansive, more willing to explore rather than withdraw. And as this pattern strengthens, your actions begin to change as well. You might start seeking new knowledge, considering different approaches, taking steps you once avoided. You begin to engage with life differently, not from a place of resistance, but from a place of possibility. And life responds to that engagement. Opportunities that once felt distant begin to feel accessible. Ideas that once seemed unrealistic begin to feel worth exploring. And gradually, your experience starts to shift not because something external forced it to change, but because you allowed yourself to see beyond what you once believed was fixed. Understand that possibility is not something you wait for, it is something you align with. And alignment begins with awareness. The next time you find yourself about to express a limitation, pause for just a moment. Not to judge yourself, not to suppress the thought, but simply to notice it. In that moment of noticing, you create space. And within that space, you have a choice. You can repeat the familiar pattern, or you can gently shift it. You can choose words that keep the door open. And as you continue to make that choice again and again, something begins to change within you. Your inner dialogue becomes more supportive, more expansive. Your perspective becomes less confined by fear and more guided by possibility. And this inner shift inevitably reflects in your outer experience, because the word you perceive is deeply influenced by the lens through which you view it. When that lens is shaped by limitation, you see barriers. When it is shaped by possibility, you begin to see pathways. So allow yourself to explore those pathways, even if you cannot yet see where they lead. Trust that the act of asking, of opening, of shifting your language is already moving you forward in ways you may not immediately understand. You are not meant to have all the answers in this moment. You are only meant to remain open to them. And the moment you shift from I can't to how can I, you step into that openness. There is a part of your mind that is always listening, always observing, always absorbing every word you speak and every thought you repeat. It does not argue with you. It does not question whether what you are saying is helpful or harmful. It simply accepts, records, and begins to act upon it. This is your subconscious mind, and its influence on your life is far deeper than most people ever realize. While your conscious mind analyzes, compares, and decides, your subconscious quietly takes everything as truth. It is like fertile soil, receiving whatever is planted within it. And your words, spoken or unspoken, unspoken, are the seeds. Over time, these seeds grow into patterns of belief, and those beliefs begin to shape your behavior, your reactions, and ultimately your reality. Think about how often you repeat certain phrases to yourself. I'm not good at this, things never work. Out for me, I always struggle. Even if these statements began as momentary expressions, repetition gives them power. Each time they are spoken, they sink deeper into the subconscious, reinforcing an identity that begins to feel fixed and unquestionable. And once something feels like part of your identity, you begin to live in alignment with it. Your subconscious mind influences the choices you make, often without you even being aware of it. It guides your comfort zones, your habits, and the risks you are willing or unwilling to take. If you have internalized the belief that something is beyond your reach, your subconscious will gently steer you away from situations that challenge that belief. Not because it wants to limit you, but because it is designed to maintain consistency with what it has accepted as true. This is why awareness becomes so essential. Because without awareness, you may continue repeating patterns that no longer serve you, believing they are simply the way things are. But the moment you begin to observe your inner dialogue, you create a shift. You start to notice the phrases that arise automatically, the ones that have been playing in the background for so long that they feel natural. And in noticing them, you begin to understand that they are not fixed truths, they are learned patterns. And what has been learned can be changed. The subconscious mind is not rigid, it is responsive. It evolves based on what it is consistently exposed to. So when you begin to introduce new language, new perspectives, and new ways of thinking, you are gradually reprogramming the patterns that have been guiding your life. This is not something that happens instantly. It is a process, but it is a powerful one. When you replace a limiting statement with one that carries even a hint of possibility, you are planting a new seed. When you repeat that new statement with intention and awareness, you begin to nurture it. And over time, it starts to take root. Your subconscious begins to accept this new pattern just as it accepted the old one. It starts to influence your thoughts in subtle ways, guiding you toward different choices, different reactions, different outcomes. You may begin to notice that you respond differently to challenges. Situations that once felt overwhelming may begin to feel manageable. Opportunities that once seemed intimidating may begin to feel worth exploring. And this shift does not come from forcing yourself to change, it comes from aligning your inner dialogue with a more expansive perspective. Because your subconscious is always working on your behalf. It is always trying to create consistency between your beliefs and your experiences. So when your beliefs are rooted in limitation, it reflects that limitation back to you. But when your beliefs begin to shift toward growth and possibility, it responds in kind. This is why the words you choose matter so deeply. Not because of what they mean on the surface, but because of what they communicate to the deeper layers of your mind. Every word you repeat becomes a signal, and over time, those signals form the blueprint of how you see yourself and how you interact with the world. So begin to speak with awareness, not perfection. You do not need to control every thought that arises. You simply need to notice which ones you choose to reinforce. When a limiting thought appears, acknowledge it without judgment. And then, if you can, gently introduce a different perspective, not to deny your experience, but to expand it. Because each time you do this, you are teaching your subconscious something new. You are showing it that your reality is not fixed, that your identity is not confined, that there is more available to you than what you have previously accepted. And as this new understanding begins to settle in, your actions begin to shift. Your confidence grows quietly, not from external validation, but from an internal alignment that feels steady and real. You begin to trust yourself in a different way. You begin to move through life with a sense of openness rather than resistance. And all of this begins from something so simple yet so profound. The awareness that your subconscious is always listening, and what you consistently tell it becomes the life you live. Every word you speak carries a certain energy, a subtle vibration that moves beyond the sound itself. It is not just about language as a tool for communication, it is about language as a carrier of frequency, and whether you are aware of it or not, this frequency interacts with the field of life around you, shaping what you experience and how you experience it. You may not be able to see this energy, but you can feel it. Think about the difference between saying, "This will never work," and saying, "There must be a way." The situation may remain the same, but the feeling within you shifts immediately. One creates heaviness, contraction, and resistance. The other creates openness, curiosity, and movement. This shift in feeling is the shift in energy, and energy is always responding. When you repeatedly use words like can't, never, or impossible, you are aligning yourself with the frequency of limitation. These words carry a sense of finality. They signal to your mind and body that there is no path forward, no solution worth exploring. And as this energy becomes familiar, it begins to shape your perception. You start to notice more reasons why things won't work, more evidence that supports your doubts, more situations that reflect back the same sense of restriction. It is not that life is suddenly becoming more difficult. It is that your awareness is tuning itself to a particular frequency, and within that frequency, certain experiences become more visible than others. This is the nature of attraction. Like energy resonates with like energy. When your words are rooted in doubt, you begin to feel that doubt more deeply. And when you feel it more deeply, you begin to act in ways that reinforce it. Perhaps you hesitate where you once might have tried. Perhaps you withdraw where you could have stepped forward. Perhaps you dismiss opportunities before they have a chance to unfold. And all of this happens so subtly that it feels natural, as if it was simply the way things are. But it is not fixed, it is responsive. The moment you begin to shift the energy behind your words, you begin to shift the experiences that align with it. This does not require you to force positivity or ignore challenges. It requires you to become aware of the tone you bring into your language. Even in moments of difficulty, there is always a choice in how you express what you are going through. You can say, "This is impossible," or you can say, "This is challenging, but I am open to a solution." Both statements acknowledge the situation, but they carry entirely different energies. One closes the field, the other keeps it open. And openness is where transformation occurs. As you begin to choose words that carry a more expansive energy, you may notice subtle changes in how you feel. Your body relaxes. Your mind becomes less rigid. There is a sense of space where before there was tension. And within that space, new possibilities begin to emerge, not because they were created in that moment, but because you are now able to perceive them. This is the interplay between your inner state and your outer experience. Your words influence your energy. Your energy influences your perception, and your perception influences what you attract and how you respond to it. So, when you speak, you are not just describing your reality, you are participating in its creation. Over time, as you become more mindful of the energy behind your words, you begin to develop a deeper sense of alignment. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your language start to move in harmony. There is less internal conflict, less contradiction between what you say and what you feel. And this harmony has a powerful effect. It creates a sense of coherence within you. And from that coherence, your actions become more intentional, more aligned with the life you want to experience. You begin to notice that things flow more easily, not because obstacles disappear, but because your relationship with them changes. You approach challenges with a different energy. Instead of resistance, there is curiosity. Instead of fear, there is openness. And this shift in approach naturally leads to different outcomes. Because life responds not only to what you do, but to the energy you bring into what you do. So, as you move through your day, listen closely to the words you use, not to judge them, but to understand them. Notice the feeling they create within you. Notice the direction they point you toward. And when you sense that your words are carrying a weight of limitation, gently choose again. Choose words that feel lighter, more open, more aligned with possibility. This is not about changing everything at once. It is about small, consistent shifts that gradually transform the way you experience life. Because the energy you speak becomes the energy you live, and what you consistently express is what you ultimately attract. There comes a moment, often subtle and easily overlooked, when you begin to realize that change does not begin outside of you. It does not begin with circumstances, with opportunities, or with the actions of others. It begins within, in the quiet awareness of how you speak, how you think, and how you interpret the world around you. And one of the most profound shifts you can make is to become conscious of your language, not as a rigid rule, but as a gentle practice of awareness. At first, this awareness may feel unfamiliar. You might catch yourself mid-sentence, noticing how quickly certain phrases arise, how naturally you repeat patterns that have been with you for years. And this is not something to resist or judge. It is simply something to observe. Because observation without resistance is the beginning of transformation. When you begin to notice your words, you begin to see the connection between what you say and how you feel. You start to recognize that certain phrases carry a heaviness, a sense of contraction, while others bring a lightness, a subtle expansion. And within that recognition, you are given a choice not to force yourself into positivity, but to gently guide your language in a direction that supports growth rather than limitation. This is where conscious language begins to reshape your inner world. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you might pause and allow a different expression to emerge. Something like, I'm learning how to do this. Notice how this does not deny the challenge. It simply reframes it. It shifts your identity from someone who is limited to someone who is evolving. And this shift, though small in words, is profound in its impact. Because every time you choose a more empowering expression, you are introducing a new pattern to your subconscious mind. You are teaching it that your reality is not fixed, that your abilities are not confined, that there is always room for growth. And as this pattern is repeated, it begins to take root, gradually replacing the old narratives that once defined your experience. This is not about perfection. You will not suddenly speak flawlessly, nor is that the goal. The goal is awareness, the goal is intention. The goal is to create a gentle alignment between your inner dialogue and the life you wish to experience. Over time, this alignment begins to influence more than just your thoughts. It begins to shape your actions. When your language becomes more supportive, your mindset becomes more open. When your mindset is open, you are more willing to take steps you once avoided. You begin to explore, to try, to move beyond the boundaries you once accepted without question. And as you take these steps, your reality begins to respond. Opportunities that once seemed distant begin to feel within reach. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. And this is not because life has suddenly become easier, but because you are engaging with it from a different place, a place of possibility, rather than limitation. There is also a deeper shift that occurs, one that is not always visible but is deeply felt. You begin to develop a sense of trust within yourself, not a forced confidence, but a quiet knowing that you are capable of navigating whatever arises. This trust comes from the consistency of your inner dialogue, from the way you support yourself through your words, rather than undermine yourself. And as this trust grows, so does your sense of presence. You are no longer caught in automatic reactions or habitual patterns. You become more aware, more intentional, more connected to the moment you are in. And from this place of presence, your choices become clearer, your actions more aligned, your experience more fulfilling. This is the true power of conscious language. It is not just about speaking differently, it is about living differently. Each word becomes a reflection of your awareness. Each sentence becomes an opportunity to align with the life you are creating. And gradually, without force, without struggle, you begin to notice that the way you experience life has shifted. You feel lighter, more open, more at ease with the unfolding of your journey. And it all began with something so simple, choosing to become aware of the words you speak. So continue this practice gently and consistently. Not to control every thought, but to guide your expression in a way that supports your growth. Because the language you choose today becomes the life you live tomorrow. And when your words align with possibility, your reality begins to follow.